Well, nice to see you again, Mev. It's been a long time.
Nice to see you too. It's been a long time.
So, just in case you don't know who this guy is, and you should do, it's a guy called Mev Dinc. He's a really, really famous programmer, and he's worked on a load of massive games on the Spectrum, especially big Trouble in Little China, Aliens, Super Hang On. Loads and loads of games like that. Can you tell us about your early life, please, Mev, and how it all started?
Oh God. I thought you'd ask me questions from my book, Life is a Game.
We'll get to the book later if that's all right.
um, but obviously, I can start by saying that I moved to the UK in 1979
Mhm.
from my native Turkey. Uh, Obviously, I share all my journey in my book, Life is a Game, as you know,
Uh-huh.
starting from my childhood, uh, my entire journey in Turkey, my education, and then ending up living in the UK. Before coming to the UK, of course, uh, marrying a marrying an English girl in Istanbul.
I see.
I was still a student at university,
Mhm.
so it was quite a journey. And then uh, while in the UK, I ended up somehow working at a cable factory in Southampton,
Mhm.
of all places, because
Right.
my wife was from Southampton.
Yeah.
So that's where we ended up when I first arrived in the UK. So we lived with our parents for a few months.
Right.
And I managed to get a job, like I said, at a cable factory,
Mhm.
STC, very famous cable factory. We actually produced thousands of miles of analog cables at the time
Right.
in the early 80s, connecting all the continents. I believe some of those cables are still in use.
Right.
Even optics is probably more in use now. Um, uh, I share even these details in my book, and a lot of readers find it fascinating because I share my experience in the factory in detail in all the things that we went through. Like I was one of the first people to implement the fiber optics production line at the
Right.
factory with engineers.
Uh,
And, and while working at the factory, uh, completely by chance, one of my work colleagues, Dos Santos, I always mention his name, he literally changed my life,
hmm.
convinced me to buy my first computer, namely the rubber keyed Wanda ZX Spectrum. And my life literally changed utterly and entirely. Really. That was back in 1983. And at the time, I was still learning English. I'd only been in England for about 4 years.
Mhm.
I'd been working at the factory for about 3 years. But of course, I had no knowledge of computing, programming, or anything,
Mm.
and no interest in gaming either, which is really crazy. Uh, so I ended up with this wonderful computer, which I didn't do anything with for weeks. And in the meantime, of course, Vino kept pestering me about it. Have you
Mm.
played this game? Have you seen this game? And in the end, I started fiddling with it, and it literally caught my attention. I found it fascinating, just typing a few lines of code,
Mm.
into the computer, and magically things would appear on the TV screen, 14-inch TV screen then.
Yeah.
And of course, Spectrum was in color. That's eight primary colors. It was a big thing then.
Mm.
And it took me literally 2 years of hard work and dedication while still working at the factory to learn about programming and all about the spectrum.
Mm.
And after 2 years, I decided to quit my job and become a professional games developer. And
How
the
did you
rest,
learn? How did you go about learning machine code on Spectrum?
that's really crazy. Even when I was writing my book, looking back at it all, trying to remember
Mm.
all the stages, I couldn't believe it myself. It's like 1 in a million. Really, like I said, I have no interest in gaming. As you know, I'm a lousy gamer. I'm really crap at playing games. Uh, so, and I have no knowledge of computing and very little English. And suddenly there I was programming the spectrum, making games. It was crazy. So I entirely self-taught from one magazine, namely Popular Computing Weekly. And it was because it was a weekly magazine, I deliberately decided to purchase that one
Yeah.
because I couldn't wait for the next issue.
Right.
But luckily, it was the best magazine I could get at the time because it wasn't just about gaming, but it was also about programming. So there are lots of little articles about programming, and in
Mm.
particular about machine code.
Yeah.
In one of the issues, somebody had written a small article saying that to become a successful games programmer, one should forget about basic and learn machine code.
Mm.
I was so inexperienced and I didn't know any difference. I thought, well, that's what I would do. I will learn machine code, and that's what I did. I did without realizing it was even harder to learn. But I'm glad I learned machine code because I programmed, developed all my games in machine code.
Yeah.
And as the article suggested, it was at least 25-30% faster than basic, So yeah, and one book, which after a lot of searching, I managed to find in, I think, W.H. Smith, amazing shop. I think it was called Machine Code Programming on the ZX Spectrum for the Absolute Beginner. I thought someone had written a book for me. It was absolutely perfect. Yeah, between that book and Popular Computing Weekly, and I entirely self-taught in 2 years. And I left the factory, and the rest is history, as they say.
Well, your first game was Gerry the Germ, wasn't it?
My first game was Gerry the Germ, yes.
So how did you?
Actually, before then, I did a couple of demos. Like
Yeah.
I realized that to make games, I needed a graphics editor. And I didn't even know that there were any third-party graphics editors then.
Yeah.
Deluxe Paint, all that came much later, as you know. So that was the first job I did while learning to program. And my wife, she was very good at drawing. And I created this graphics editor as my first professional development job on the Spectrum. And I thought if she could use this, that means I'm on the right tracks because she had no knowledge of computing or games or anything. And, it was amazing. I mean, she could really make wonderful graphics, zoom in, into the pixels. And I wrote little animation function as well. So she could do animation also. So she actually ended up creating the Gerry the Germ character, the main character, which was amazing. Which I actually pitched to Tony Rainbird of Rainbird Software.
Yeah.
At one of the computer fairs in London. And he was very impressed with my editor demo. And he said, well, this looks really professional. And considering this is your first attempt at, making a product,
Mm.
programming it yourself and everything. And they said, if you've got any game ideas, whatever, please let me know. So that gave me a lot of encouragement.
Yeah.
So I came up with this idea of Gerry the Germ. I thought I need to do something different to, make a difference, because I had no idea, because I wasn't even playing any games.
Yeah.
I didn't know what sort of games I should be making, what sort of games people would be interested in playing. So it's like really crazy when you think about it. I ended up with Gerry the Germ because I thought human body is like perfect environment for a game.
Mm.
It's got all different body parts, all the different levels, as it were.
Yeah.
So I thought it's a clever way to simplify the design aspect in
Mm.
terms of levels and ideas. So, the lung and heart and all that,
Mm.
So my wife and I together came up with some fancy names for each body part and made each part as a small mini game, as it were.
Yeah.
And Gerry the Germ, of course, the gamer was playing the germ as the main character, which was unusual. That was very deliberate on my part, because I thought everyone is playing heroes, I'll
Mm.
make mine the hero to make it different. It's like helping the germ destroy a human body. A few of the magazines found it very distasteful. I remember. Technically, it got amazing reviews, which pleased me quite a lot, which was amazing.
Well, your career after that really took off, didn't it? Because you went down to Electric Dreams, was your next company.
Yeah, well, I was very lucky to have signed my first game with British Telecom
Yeah.
Soft. They gave me such a wonderful contract. Of course, at the time, I didn't realize it was a wonderful contract. I just signed it without even checking it.
Yeah.
No point in checking it, not that I would have understood any of it.
Mm.
Not only was my English not good enough, but also, it was a sort of legal document. A
Mm.
lot of words that, I didn't even know, royalties and all that. And much later, I realized that they'd given me royalties. I thought, bloody hell, that's interesting. I looked into it, and I made sure that every game I created, or every original game, I made sure I held the copyright and IP rights,
Mm.
which was a very important thing. And then subsequently, I encouraged all my developer friends like John Hare and all the others to do the same.
Mm.
And they said, royalties, they never pay. I said, look, you never know. Just have the clause in the agreement. You never know.
Mm.
They don't pay, they don't pay, but you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So that I was very lucky in that respect. And Electric Dreams were based in Southampton.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up meeting with Rod Cousins. In fact, before I started doing my Gerry the Germ game, my first professional assignment was to help with the conversion of 3D Antatech.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. From Spectrum to Commodore 64.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, of course, yes. I forgot about that. That was my first professional job. I thought, what a way to start.
Yes.
So, yeah, I helped with the Spectrum side of things. The Commodore programmer didn't know anything about the Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So I disassembled Sandy White's entire code. I can remember it was like this thick paper of code,
Yeah.
So I had to go through it all and try and understand how it worked. And of course, Sandy White had written most of it in machine code and some of it is basic. And it was crazy. He'd actually handwritten a lot of the hex code. Subsequently, I learned that. And it was amazing. I actually met him at the ZX Spectrum 40th anniversary event.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
3 years ago. Yeah, it was wonderful to see each other. It was wonderful. He bought one of my books and I signed it for him, and it was wonderful seeing him after all those years.
Mm,
Uh, so he knew that I had a hand in the conversion of 3D Antatak
yeah.
to 64, which was very nice. Yeah. So uh, so yeah, I did my second game with Electric Dreams, which effectively was part of Activision, as you know.
Yeah.
So I actually started working with Activision way back in 1986. Yeah. Not many people probably would know that Activision existed, as
Yeah.
early as in 1986. Yeah. And my relationship with Activision continued until 1991.
Mm,
Of course, I did Enduro Racer for them as a rescue project.
yeah.
They desperately needed it for Christmas 1987.
Yeah.
I only had like 2 months or something, and I managed to cleverly do a straight conversion from the Spectrum to Amstrad.
Yeah.
It took me like 3 weeks, and they were absolutely gobsmacked. They were very impressed. And I got very good money for that work. Uh, so I was very lucky. Very early on, I was learning all about the contracts and negotiations, as
Yeah.
well as making games, which was nice. Um, and with, of course, doing the Enduro Racer on the Amstrad
Mm,
made me quite well known in Europe, because
yeah.
Amstrad, as you may know, was very, very big in France and Spain for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah.
It was because of Spectrum having a stronghold in the UK.
Yeah.
So it didn't do that well. But anyway, I became quite famous in Europe too with Enduro Race. And then I ended up doing Last Ninja 2.
Mhm.
That was again published by Activision, but it was a System 3 game, as you know. First, they asked me to do Last Ninja 1 because Last Ninja 1 never came out on the Spectrum, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'd already spent 8 months or something, but it was far from finished when they showed me the demo. They asked me to rescue it. I said, look, this is beyond rescue. I wouldn't have anything to do with this. And then I'd heard that they were just about to start Last Ninja 2.
Mm,
And I literally proposed to get involved in Last Ninja 2 from day one. I said, forget about Last Ninja 1 because it's like, it will take me 8 months to write it from scratch. Just as well, let me work on Last Ninja 2
yeah.
alongside 64 so I can help with the design, programming, everything so we can do all three versions together.
Yeah.
That's another thing I was, Sean, I must say this I mustn't forget this. This is very important actually, that starting with my first game, I actually did multi-format launches. I did all my games on 3 formats from day
Ah,
one,
right. Yeah.
which is unusual.
Yeah.
Namely Spectrum and Amstrad, which I coded personally myself.
Yeah.
And then I found a very talented 64 programmer. And so I could like do 3 versions at the same time.
Ah,
And
brilliant.
of course, it also allowed me to learn Commodore 64 as well. So I became an all-round
Yeah.
programmer on those 3 platforms. So anyway, so we started working on Last Ninja 2. Then I moved to London, Watford, namely.
Mm,
So I lived there for a while with John Tweedy, with whom I set up Vivid Image later on, as you know, along with Hugh Riley.
mhm.
Hugh Riley and John Tweedy were working on Commodore 64 version of Last Ninja 2, and they'd also done Last Ninja 1 on the Commodore 64. Of course, it was a massive game, and
Mm,
initially I wasn't too keen on doing conversions and other people's designs. I always wanted to do my own games. But
Yeah.
I thought Last Ninja would help my programming career,
Yeah.
publish my name quicker. With Enduro Racer, I could see the effect it had in Europe. I thought if I do Last Ninja 2 as well, I would instantly become one of the top names
Mm.
in the UK. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Of course, Mark Cale had other plans for us. He thought he could keep us. But from day one, I made it absolutely clear that I had no intention of staying at System 3.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do my own games. And John and Hugh loved the idea. And they told me that they would love to become my partners,
Mm.
setting up a company. And thus we ended up setting up Vivid Image Developments Limited.
Yeah.
And we ended up signing a massive deal. I share all the details in my book. I think I share many details, intriguing details in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very insightful too. A lot of even today's newcomers to the industry. I dealt with like industry heavyweights like Rod Cousins. He was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from him, and it always been very good to me. So after heavy negotiation with him, I managed to strike a very good deal with Activision. At the time, I think it was the biggest publisher developer deal in the UK. But unfortunately, then Activision had some financial problems in 1991. Again, not many people know that. So they went a little bit quiet. I did 2 games with them, Amethyst and Time Machine.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to do a really nice martial arts game to rival like Last Ninja because of Last Ninja's massive success. We also helped with Last Ninja 3, even though we had nothing to do with System 3, just to show to Mark that, there was no problems between us and whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm actually credited in Last Ninja 3, Commodore 64 version. Anyway, in 1991, I signed a huge deal with Microsoft, which was the biggest publisher at the time, for First Samurai, which was one of our biggest games.
Yeah.
And like I said, I always wanted to do a martial arts game. So obviously, I didn't want to do a ninja game. It would be too obvious. I thought, but we could do a samurai game. And I always enjoyed playing with names. So Last Ninja, First Samurai. So that's how it happened. That's how First Samurai came about. And we ended up working with amazing programmer, Rafael Checo. I'd already worked with him on Time Machine.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
Benjamin Amstrad versions of Time Machine.
Yeah.
And I convinced him to do another project with us because we got on so well with him. We always connected,
Yeah.
He loved my wacky ideas, names and all that, And he was an amazing programmer. I'm sure he still is, along with John Tweedy. And of course, he did an amazing job. We all did an amazing job on First Samurai. It was voted the Game of the Year in 1991. But unfortunately, as I share all the details in my book, Robert Maxwell had an accident and fell off his yacht or something and died. And the entire Maxwell group, went with him, and it did Microsoft as well. A lot of companies like myself, Bitmaps, Sensible Soccer, we were all working with Microsoft.
Yeah.
Microsoft was the biggest publisher. We were like, first like programming stars actually at the time. We were appearing on magazine covers, 6-page interviews. It was amazing. So anyway, with the help of Rod Cousins, like I said, I learned a lot from my very first contract with British Telecom. So I always had copyright and IP rights. So it's very easy to terminate contracts, you see. And I had a termination clause and everything. So when Microsoft went under, I got all the rights back very quickly, very easily.
Yeah.
Whereas other developers really struggled for ages. And with the help of Rod Cousins, I licensed First Samurai to a Japanese company called Kemco. And they did the Nintendo SNES version of First Samurai. And we ended up with John coming to Japan for 10 days, which we had an amazing time, you know. And just helped them with the game, but they did all the coding. They said that they know the Japanese market better. And the Japanese gamers like games a lot harder than the Europeans, you know, and they made it really hard. And it was very different from the Amiga version. I don't think it was as good as the Amiga version, although they did a good job. So that's how I managed to keep the company going, you know. Otherwise, we could have gone under with Microsoft, to be honest. It was a massive blow. Yeah, it was huge. Anyway, so after Microsoft, I have managed to sign a very big contract with Ubisoft for Street Racer.
Yeah.
Another amazing game, if I say so myself. It was the world's first 4-player simultaneous split screen game, really multiplayer game. So you could connect 2 multi-taps, so 4 people could play together on one system, which was amazing. And without the aid of a DSP chip, which impressed Nintendo to no end, and also which saved around $3 from the cartridge production cost.
Okay.
I suggested to Ubisoft that I should get that as royalty because I saved them $3, and that's what I got, which is amazing.
Oh, wow.
Massive. Yeah. And probably Street Racer is my biggest commercial success. I think it sold almost 500,000 units just in Europe. It was a big game. West Brothers, Tony and Chris West worked on that. They did an amazing job. And I encouraged them to do the 4-player split screen, and they managed to do it. It was some achievement, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was 1994 with Ubisoft. Actually, before 1994, my first contact with Ubisoft, again, I share all these details in the book, but I briefly share here with you. I actually did First Samurai on the PC, DOS version. I programmed the DOS version.
Yeah.
Because at the time I wasn't programming anymore, just helping with the high concept, coming up with the game design ideas, whatever, helping with the projects, helping organize the teams, managing the company, managing the press. I had an amazing relationship with the press as well. That's why we would always get extra couple of pages, you know, in the magazines. And we always somehow, almost all my games ended up on magazine covers, which was amazing. I did the PC version of First Samurai. I did the line-by-line conversion from the Amiga version.
Wow.
I think it took me 3 months. I'm glad I did that because that's helped me save the company.
Yeah.
Because I got good money from Ubisoft. That was Ubisoft published that. At the time, Ubisoft were still a massive distributor in Europe. They were the biggest distributor.
Yeah.
And they were distributing Electronic Arts, Microsoft, Virgin, whatever, you name it, all of them. And I think they suddenly realized the gaming sector was booming and it was becoming really big. And they probably felt, why are we distributing other publishers' games? We should become a publisher ourselves. And that's what they did in 1994.
Yeah.
And I have a special relationship with Ubisoft because Street Racer is their first professional published game as
Right.
Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing, even before Rayman. And of course, because of the success of the SNES version, Ubisoft wanted to milk the success and asked me to do bloody hell, every version under the sun, including Game Boy, Game Gear, Sega Saturn, PlayStation. So we ended up working on Street Racer for nearly 4.5 years, which I didn't really fancy doing much, but it was really good money. I mean, they paid me so much money
Yeah.
for each version. And I'm glad we did. Some of them were amazing, especially Sega Saturn version was crazy. Yeah, we managed to do 8-player split
Hey.
screen
Oh,
on one machine. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Going back to some earlier games, if that's okay, and then we'll go on to the book
Sure,
proper.
sure.
You worked on Aliens.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, because I was so close to Activision,
Hmm.
doing amazing rescue jobs for them with Enduro Racer, Last Ninja, and then of course we became very close friends with Rod Cousins and John Dean.
Yeah.
John Dean was the head of Activision development studio. He was looking after all the external developers as well.
Yeah.
So we became good friends. And because while I was working on my own games, like I also did Big Trouble in Little China, which
Hmm.
was another rescue job. And again, I did all 3 versions. And at the same time, we also helped Aliens, the UK version, which was the best version, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was the Amstrad version, the original UK Amstrad version was amazing.
Yeah.
So much better than the US version. And we helped convert the Amstrad version to Commodore 64. So my Commodore 64 programmer helped with the sprite routines, and he was very clever.
Mhm.
And I share amazing details in my book. I hope viewers would read the book. They would relive a lot of the 80s and 90s. And a lot of the things that they wouldn't even know,
And how much
And
of the design did you have involvement in Aliens? Because it was quite unusual design, wasn't it? A lot of people were going for the sort of platform game shoot 'em up when it came to like a film conversion, but it was much different. Aliens. Did you have anything to do with the design on that game?
well, because it was already out on the Amstrad,
Hmm.
and it was brilliant. I mean,
Oh, I see. Right. So you just conversed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was brilliant. I mean, we probably improved a few things here and then, but the actual Amstrad version was excellent.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the 64 version was converted from the Amstrad version.
Ah, right. And
And I also helped with Super Hang-On.
yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Was a very close friend of mine. I probably, did lots of little things like that. A lot
Yeah.
of things I, of course, probably forgot over the years. And of course, I moved to London. I ended up divorcing my first wife. Ended up living in London until the year 2000.
Hmm.
When I decided to move back to native Turkey. That's another part of my career.
You set up a games company there, didn't you, as well?
Hmm?
You set up a games company in Turkey.
Yeah, I am effectively the founding father of the Turkish gaming sector.
Hmm.
Because when I went there, there was hardly any game development to speak of.
Hmm.
There had been some attempts, in the sort of late 80s and mid 90s,
Hmm.
but nothing major. Some nice efforts, really nice couple of indie games, but
Yeah.
because there was an ecosystem, it never really developed into anything.
Hmm.
So with my relocating to Turkey and setting up Turkish first professional game studio, as it were, it created like such an amazing buzz, especially amongst young people. And Turkey has one of the biggest young population in the world. You know, millions of young people. Still does actually. But of course, because there was no game industry, there were no experienced developers to employ either. So I had to handpick like 2, 3 really clever, enthusiastic university students.
Right.
It started out at a university campus by complete chance, you know, small office, like 150 square feet office. And I started from scratch. It was amazing, you know. And that's how I actually kickstarted the Turkish gaming sector with a handful of people. One guy joined me from the UK, from my Mev Dinc team, Will Cowling. He's now working for Epic Games. He's actually, before then he was working for PlayStation London.
Right.
So yeah, he was a great programmer and a very good friend. But I said to him, look, I want to do this with the local talent. Please just come for 1 year, help me start, but then you can go. So he stayed for 1 year, and reluctantly he left. He loved Turkey, you know, but we never lost touch. You know, we always stayed in touch. He's a great. And so literally I ended up doing all my games in Turkey with local talent, which was amazing. And before I came to Turkey, I actually developed a 3D engine called Acta Game Engine, which Will Cowling worked on. He was one of the lead programmers on it. And before I left the UK, in 2000, June, I think it was, the famous Pentium 4 processor was launched in June 2000. I don't know if you remember. Intel launched the Pentium 4 processor in 2000. And we released a demo of Acta Game Engine in GDC in 1999. It's amazing. Like 35 years ago.
Bloody hell.
And I mean, it created such a huge buzz in the industry. It was a very impressive engine, if I may say so myself, because it was the first 3D engine to fully incorporate and integrate dynamic physics engine. And it was very efficient, very fast. And we worked with a very clever team called Math Engine, used their dynamics engine, physics engine, and did such a great job integrating it into our 3D engine. And I came up with these crazy ideas, you know, like martial arts, fighting, and, you know, like John Woo kind of action scene, and, you know, like create this massive dojo with lots of props in it. You could kick chairs and play basketball, play football. You had a big mirror on the wall, you know, with reflection. It was crazy, you know. Even had a like little bathtub with, you know, water simulation, everything. It was just crazy. So people were so impressed by the dynamics and the interaction of the environment or with the environment, and with thousands of 3D objects with real-time physics, you know. It was very impressive, I must say. And one of the big brands that was impressed was Intel. And Intel was about to launch their Pentium 4 processor, and they asked us to create a demo, a special demo for them, so they could use it to promote Pentium 4. I thought, wow.
Well,
I thought, I'm really proud of that work. So we did a great demo, and some people still talk about it, you know. It was very impressive. And Intel used that demo for the worldwide promotion of the Pentium 4 processor, which was amazing. And I actually did another demo for Intel when I was in Turkey. And when Will was still in Istanbul, just before he left, we did a second demo for Pentium 4 2.2 or something. That was like the next chip processor up. So yeah, I ended up doing 2 demos for Intel. And I used that engine. Of course, I wanted to do a very ambitious game with that engine.
Yeah.
The name wasn't accident. It was like carefully chosen. Like I said, I always enjoyed playing with words. PlayStation out, 3D engine, dynamic physics. I thought, oh my God, we are getting very good at making games. Hardware is becoming very powerful. Pentium 4, PlayStation, 2 is coming out and everything else. So I thought, I think we could now start making games like films, really impressive games, attractive films, as it were. So I thought I could create an actor engine and make really ambitious games. That was the idea behind it. So I wanted to make like a very ambitious martial arts movie, like action movie, like John Woo movie,
Yeah.
That's why demo had all those props and objects and things in it. But unfortunately, when I decided to move back to Turkey, I had to put that project on back burner. And it's still on the back burner. But I ended up using that engine for Turkey's first and biggest MMORPG game. It started developing in 2004. That was 20 years ago. Time flies. And that game is still active, the Istanbul game. It's amazing. The gamers wouldn't leave it. It's their first game. Millions of Turkish gamers grew up playing it.
Yeah.
So they still keep it going, which is amazing. I think there are only 3 games that lasted this long. I think it's entering its 18th year this year.
Right. Wow. Bloody hell.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I always said to you, you should write a book, and then you did. So what was the idea behind it? When did you decide that you wanted to tell your story?
My book?
Yeah, your book.
Well, actually, for a long time, I had been thinking about my book because obviously, when I did all those amazing games like Enduro Racer, Last Ninja 2, First Samurai, Street Racer, they're quite big names. I don't want to be too modest about it. And nobody knew how I ended up becoming a programmer, how I ended up coming to the UK. It's quite an interesting story. I thought it would be interesting to share my story with my gamers,
Yeah.
and also, of course, a new generation of young people who read the book now, especially in Turkey, tens of thousands of them. They're embarrassed that they don't even know me,
Yeah.
because I've been away from the industry for the last 7, 8 years. But with my book, now I'm reconnecting with the current sort of 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds, some of whom played some of my games that I made 10 years ago, when they were only 8 years old, which is amazing. So, and I have millions of gamers around the world, and loads of people who played my games that I created in the UK, and millions of gamers in Turkey. So it's amazing. Whichever country I go, I travel quite a lot these days. I always meet my gamers somehow, retro gamers. I spent 3 months in Italy before I came to Thailand to visit my son a few weeks ago. And he grew up playing Second Samurai in the 90s. Can you imagine,
Smart, isn't
So
it?
yeah, he invited me to Umbria, Spalato, a lovely city. And he organized an event for me, a retro event, which was beautiful, you know. So he took me to Bologna, is it?
Mhm.
In the Bologna. So I attended a few events, signed few books, which is amazing. You know, so it's like meeting 45, 50-year-old gamers, you know. In Turkey, of course, they're much younger, you know. So yeah, I mean, I really wanted to share my story from my childhood because I had a very interesting childhood
Yeah.
from a remote Black Sea village, you know, with a very difficult childhood. My father left me when I was only 6 months old.
Yeah.
And, you know, ending up in the UK, then ending up in the amazing gaming industry, then somehow coming back to Turkey to kickstart the gaming sector. I mean, I thought, wow, you know, it's quite a story. So it'd
Yeah.
be nice to
Well,
share it.
I
Yeah.
bought it and I've read it, and it's a very honest book. Did you leave anything out? Well, you probably can't tell me, but did you leave anything out? Just so you didn't hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that?
Well, of course, I mean, you know, I'm telling the story of my entire life, as it were. You know,
Mm,
the English version includes the COVID pandemic as well, you
mm,
know,
yeah.
so it's right up to date. Uh, I don't think I left anything consciously. You know, I may have left things that I couldn't remember. I left out a few names that I sort of disappointed few people that I sort of touched or worked with. But I was very, very careful to include everybody. But it's not easy, of course, as you can guess.
Mm.
Um, I I don't think I left out anything important, to be honest. Did you feel like it was missing anything?
Well, you missed me out, but that's okay. I only worked with you for about 3 months, so that's okay. I'll let you off for that one.
I'm having difficulty. One moment. I need
Okay.
to check this. 1 minute. All right, I'm having difficulty hearing your voice.
Wait a minute. I'll move my microphone closer.
That's better now, I think.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wasn't in the book, but you only worked with me for 3 months, so that I'll let you off for that one.
Yeah, but like I said,
You
I
can't
mean,
get everybody in.
yeah, yeah, really. So, but I don't think length was the deciding
Yeah,
factor. Probably just because it's just such a long time, you know, and
yeah,
it
you
comes
can't get
so many
everybody in.
years in different countries, different times. So, it, a lot of my close friends are absolutely shocked that I could remember as much as I share in my book, to be honest.
How did you go about writing it? Did you write it in sections or did you write it literally in chronological order?
Well, that's a lovely question. Actually, what happened is this, Sean. Uh, of course, what I achieved in Turkey was amazing. You
Hmm.
know, becoming a founding father of, you know, a game sector in a country is amazing, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
especially your native country is even more special. So I feel really blessed. And also, of course, making important contribution and playing a, you know, reasonably important part in the early 80s and 90s in
Hmm.
the UK,
Yeah.
for which I became a BAFTA member as well, which is again such a great honor. So uh, I sold my company to Turk Telecom in 2009.
Right.
That was like the first Turkish game studio company sale in Turkey, in fact. Of
Hmm.
course, it wasn't for big money, so it wasn't a big news, but it was a big, big thing because it paved the way to many big investors and big brands to show interest in the gaming market in Turkey, because
Yeah.
Türk Telekom is like British Telecom, the biggest name in Turkey. So it was a big thing.
Mm.
And I continued to run the company for about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, the attitude of Türk Telekom changed completely. And they didn't want to have anything to do with the gaming industry, which is such a shame.
Yeah.
Because the CEO who bought my company had already left, and the top management, I could feel it that they didn't want to buy my company.
Mm.
But the CEO who'd left could buy it because he used his executive power to do so. He was a very visionary guy, you know. And unfortunately, their attitude changed, and they decided to merge the company they bought from me with one of the bigger group companies, which means killing the company off.
Mm.
So it was ridiculous, and I couldn't watch it, watch my baby die in front of my eyes, even though it wasn't mine anymore. But it was my baby. I had created it, and
Yeah.
it went all the way back to 1980s, So I decided to leave in 2013, like over 10 years ago. It's amazing. So it created a massive void in me, and I was absolutely shocked suddenly, dropping out of the game, as it were,
Yeah.
when Turkish gaming sector was about to skyrocket. And suddenly I wasn't in the game. It's so sad, isn't it?
Mm.
And Türk Telekom, such a big name, and I did such an amazing set of products with them. I
Yeah.
used their position, their power, everything, and did amazing things. I even collaborated with Marvel. I made a very successful game called Super John. It was like a kids superhero game.
Right.
And I managed to convince Marvel to allow us to use Marvel heroes in my game, which was
Mm.
amazing.
Mm.
It's unheard of and never will be, and Türk Telekom decided to destroy everything. After I left, they shut the company down, closed down all the games, shut down all the games.
Mm.
Only the Istanbul game is still going because, like I said, gamers wouldn't leave it. It's amazing. So yeah, and so it was a massive disappointment, and I decided to leave Turkey. I went to Barcelona. Then, when I was living in Barcelona with my second wife, in 2015, I attended Commodore Amiga 35th anniversary, I think. If I remember, or was it 37? I can't remember. I don't want to make a mistake. But anyway, it was like October 2015. I came to the UK. It was wonderful seeing John Hare, Mike Montgomery,
Mm.
many people. It was wonderful. So, and then I also met one of my friends from Turkey who moved to London. He was a very successful business guy, quite a bit younger than me, but very, very successful. And he invited me to have dinner with his family in London,
Mm.
which I obliged. And he said, "Well, you did all these amazing games, both in the UK and in Turkey. You literally single-handedly created this sector in Turkey.
Mm.
And we have no idea how you started, making games. What made you start this amazing journey and all that?" So I thought, wow, that's a good question. Nobody really knew, anything about my background. And then I said, how long do we have? I can share some of my story.
Mm.
So I told him over dinner and a couple of bottles of nice wine. They were, yeah, he and his wife were listening with absolute amazement. They were shocked, as I was sharing all the details about my journey, how I ended up marrying this English girl when I was still a university student. I couldn't speak a word of English. She couldn't speak a word of Turkish. Just crazy, even obscure for a movie. And then how I ended up in the UK, and like I shared earlier, working at a factory, then accidentally becoming a games programmer, making all these games. And he said, you must write a book. You must share this in a book. And I said, but I've been thinking about doing this for a long time. And he said, look, you're in Barcelona. It's a perfect place to write a book,
Yeah.
So yeah, I went back and I thought, yeah, he's right. Why not start writing my story? I've got nothing else to do. So that's how I started. I started in 2015 in Barcelona. Then I moved to London in 2006. I lived in the UK for 2 years in London. And I'm glad I did that because I had never really enjoyed London before because of enjoyment with my work. I was so busy, so involved with it. You take it for granted, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
You live in London and you never even think about visiting anything anywhere,
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed living in London. I lived in this beautiful Greenwich Village, which is beautiful by the Thames River, at a beautiful flat overlooking the river, with beautiful sunset and everything. So I really enjoyed it. So continued to write the book, then decided to move back to Turkey. So I finished the book in Turkey. For some reason, I wanted to write the Turkish version first because my Turkish gamers were a lot fresher, I mean, I just created all these games in Turkey. So I thought it would be better to release the Turkish version first. They would find it even more fascinating because they didn't know anything about my journey to the UK and how I ended up making all those games. They just assumed I was a very clever guy, went to UK, studied some fancy at some fancy university and became a programmer. They didn't have a clue. So yeah, so I released the Turkish version, and then I'd already thought of getting it translated because I'd never have enough time to write the English version myself because it's such a big task. And I'm not a writer as such, as you can tell from my book. I actually tell my story. It's not. It's written like a storytelling sort of manner, That's the only way I could write it, I guess. But yeah, I'm glad I did it like that because it's easier to read. I think anyway.
Well, to me, it reads like you're telling a story down the pub or something like that.
Yeah.
It sounds
So,
like, yeah, it comes over like you're telling a story down the pub, but
yeah.
yeah,
Yes, absolutely. It's
yeah.
just like I actually decided from day one that I would write it as if I'm sitting down with a friend, telling him my story. Because that's the only way I could write it, I thought. Because I'm not a natural writer as such, although I can put together, some clever words and sentences. And I can, like I said, I enjoy playing with words and things. And I'm sure you could see from the headings that I always played with words, London calling and all that, many things. So, and I also used lots of headings to make it more readable, like more fun, sort of like catchy headings to entice the reader to continue reading. And it seems to work quite a lot. And actually, I must just remember this, and I'd like to share it with you. When I was in Italy, I did an interview with Italian Zap 64 magazine.
Right.
Zap is still going. No, I think it's multi-format. Sorry, not Zap 64. It's called Zap.
Yeah.
So it's multi. So I did a massive interview with the editor. And of course, he was fascinated by my story and all my games and things. He played almost all of them. And he offered to translate my book.
Oh, right.
He's doing right now. Because I cannot tell you how pleased I am. And he's reporting back to me every like couple of weeks. He's 50% into it. And he said he's enjoying it so much. He's enjoying reading the book. He's enjoying translating it. Making it like, of course, as I've written in Italian, which is important.
Yeah.
And his English is good enough to do that. So yeah, it took me around 3 years to write the Turkish version.
Yeah.
I had it sort of read by a couple of really close friends that I could trust and also rely on their professional feedback because they were journalists and, like they could sort of tell me honestly if it was any good. And the reactions I got were absolutely amazing. I mean, it was so encouraging. So I thought, wow. And of course, it's such a big book and it covers
a
long period of my life. I'm fucking 67. And also so many different areas, Margaret Thatcher, Erdogan in Turkey, England, UK, different cultures, different music, everything, so many things. So there were some repetitions, that kind of stuff. So somebody helped me with all that. I didn't even use an editor, to be honest, for the Turkish version, nor did I use an editor for the English version either. But one English friend who read the draft several times, he enjoyed it so much. I think he ended up reading the book 7, 8 times, I think. And each time he said he enjoyed it. So he helped, with a lot of deductions, corrections, reductions. And then my nephew, my first wife's nephew, Michael, who is a writer, he literally begged me to read the book. And of course, he's being a writer, he did an amazing thing. He made like a lot of really nice corrections and things. He caught repetitions, that kind of stuff. So he was my editor in effect. So I never used a professional book editor as such. So it turned out reasonably well. So anyway, like I said, I was hoping to get it translated, but during the pandemic, I thought, well, I've got all this time, although I was doing a lot of online lectures and talks, to support young people who are stuck at home, I really enjoyed that. I initiated that in Turkey. And I must have reached tens of thousands of young people through online presentations, sharing my knowledge and experience, and of course, promoting my book. So it was brilliant. And then so that all the young people in Turkey could read the book easily, I made the digital book in Turkey free on Google Play, because Apple Books is not available in Turkey for some reason. So now tens of thousands of people are reading it in Turkey, and I'm hoping more people would read the book because the feedback and comments I get from readers is just so heartwarming, so genuine. I mean, they all find something in the book for themselves, which is nice. Young and old, it doesn't matter. They all somehow find something because life is a game.
It is.
The title, yes, and it touches everybody somehow. Yeah. So on and off, the original took me about 3 years, but the English version it took me 3 months. I did it like I would write a game. It was like non-stop. It was really intense, and it took about another 3 months to get it all sort of designed and formatted and released. So yeah.
Brilliant. So what's the future then?
I'm glad I wrote it, and I hope more people would read it, and please spread the word.
Well, it's available
Appreciate
on Amazon, isn't it?
it.
It's available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon. If you like, I'll share with you the link, mevdinc.com. All the links are there, the digital versions as well.
Oh,
Which is
excellent.
easier to get.
Yeah,
You can mention that
excellent. Great. I'll put that on the video as well.
because that has all the print and digital links. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Fusion, Retrofusion, Chris Wilkins is selling it in the UK as well.
Right.
Yeah. He's been supporting the book quite a lot.
Yeah.
But like I said, there are ebook versions, which is a lot cheaper. It's around like £5 or something.
Yeah.
It's the same, yeah, in full color. So that's it, basically.
Right. Well, it's been an amazing chat, mate, as usual. So
It's been really nice talking to you, and it's been great seeing you after so many years.
Yeah, you too, mate. Yeah,
You also keeping busy.
Yeah.
Are you working on another book?
Yeah, I've got one more book in me. So I do mainly, I did a few music history books, but I'm
Really?
doing, yeah, so they're called Vox 1 and Vox 2. And it's basically just history with a few band interviews in there as well. And I've got one last ZX Spectrum guidebook that's coming out probably in about
All
June.
right.
Yeah, so I'm
Okay.
still busy, but that's my last one because I take so much out of you, as you'll probably know, writing
All
books.
right. So Spectrum Guide, what will it, what sort of information will it cover?
Yeah, it's basically just the last one
Games
is
again?
adventure games only, and it's from 1988 to 1990, and then Spectrum sort of dies around about that time, so it's getting harder to find games to review. There's a few of them, but it's less every year, isn't it? You know?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Good luck with that.
Well, good luck with your projects as well, mate. Well, thanks again for doing the chat. It's been really good again.
Well, to be honest, at the moment, I'm mainly attending retro events, which is brilliant. I get invited to lots of retro games. I really enjoy that. It's wonderful to be able to meet gamers from the 80s and 90s, as well as many people from Turkey in the 2000 and up, onwards. And also I do lots of online presentations towards college and university students. I get a lot of invites, and I gave them a lot of my time. I enjoy sharing my knowledge and experience with young people. Yeah, they really benefit from it, and it also helps me. It keeps me busy.
Yeah,
and it's nice to share your knowledge and experience.
Yeah,
and I can see that a lot of what we know, what we did, still valid today, which is amazing. Some things are timeless.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks again, mate. It's been nice chatting. I'll let you know when it's up, and it's been great again. Thank you.
Well, thank you for doing it, and it's been wonderful chatting to you too. And thanks for your support. Take care and see you again soon.
See you, mate. You take care.
Right, cheers.